considering that I love extraction shooters, my favorite one's definitely got to be Hunt Showdown. But I never got to play Escape from Tarkov. I always wanted to, but I never got around to it. Arena Breakout Infinite is definitely a game I'm going to have to try at some point in time. I've played a little bit of Delta Force. I'm not too great at the game. Although I'll take the time to get better at it eventually. Just too many games to play. But Marathon's definitely going to be a fascinating case because it is the development studio that worked on Bungie. And Bungie in particular, aside from their incredible catalog of doing like Halo and doing Destiny, the Destiny franchise, they are for the first time diving into extraction shooters. Now, extraction shooters right now are definitely very trendy, but they've never become the battle royale, the new battle royale game mode that everyone's expecting it to be. It's definitely not taken off, and I think a large part of that is that extraction shooters are very like not just demanding, but I also think that they're very like emotionally overwhelming for a lot of people because you lose. The feeling of losing in that game is so devastating compared to the feeling of winning. So I'm very curious to see what is Bungie's approach to an extraction shooter. How do they plan on alleviating certain elements that bring players in? Personally, I feel like the game that does it best right now is, in my opinion, Hunt Showdown. I think that it's got the most well thought out designs without a doubt. However, I think that games like that have looter shooter elements like Delta Force, Escape from Tarkov, and stuff like that, those games clearly are more addicting because of the loot mechanics. I also think that it's going to be very interesting to see how Bungie tackles not just cheating, because cheating in extraction shooters is extremely prevalent. It is really hard to deal with because the power scale, the power difference of cheating in those games is significantly tilted in your favor if you're cheating, and you only get one life, and the devastating loss is extremely overwhelming. And having game sense and game awareness of where the players are at is huge. So it's going to be interesting to see how Bungie tackles it, and I'm very curious to see what their approach is going to be.
Bungie HQ here in beautiful Washington, where we're coming to you live with the opportunity to share a little bit of Marathon gameplay with you for the very first time. My name's Andy. I work on the social media team here, and we've got an awesome show lined up for you with a little surprise at the end that you're going to want to stick around
now,
to.
One of the things I did hear that when Marathon was doing its PR campaign, they were doing a lot of creative approaches to hinting
Let's get into the show.
Things out.
First things
this
first,
thing super
this
sped up?
gentleman here to my right,
No.
to your left, is Marathon's game director, Mr. Joe Ziegler. Joe, how you doing?
It feels like the video sped up for some reason.
Like, super excited to finally show something about our game, you know? We've been a little bit silent for a while, but we're hoping you'll have a lot of fun today.
Yeah, we'll have another video in addition to the one of just you in your office hanging out.
Exactly, yeah. I won't be talking for like 20 minutes straight this time, I promise, yeah.
So for anyone out there
this video is an hour long.
Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
I work with
20
a lot
minutes
of
straight.
amazing people, some of the people on this stage, a lot of people who are sort of in the audience here today. My goal is ultimately to take sort of all the ideas that we have, bring them together into a singular experience, and help to deliver that experience as a single thread. So, just love that.
Thank you very much for being here today, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. As we go on down the line, we're also joined by a man who's been instrumental in bringing the worlds of both games and film to life, our franchise art director, Mr. Joe Cross. Joe, how's it going? Joe, for anyone, obviously you've got some fans here, but for anyone out there in the audience at home that may not know you or doesn't get a chance to work with you, can you tell us just a little bit about who you are and what you do here?
Yeah, so I'm Joe Cross. I'm franchise art director of Marathon, and you know, my job is to sort of set the tone and the vision, the visual style of this, reimagine this IP and this amazing game. and then you know, make sure that our world-class art team is set up for success.
I'm gonna skip ahead of the intros for these guys because I don't really care about their positions. I just want to see the game.
Yourself.
Yeah, to awesome people, to weapons on top.
Introducing the entire staff.
Either the one, the only
Full
Mr.
credit
Lars
to them for
Lockett.
working on a great project, but
Marathon's back.
You could.
still.
I'll leave that to you, though. Well, for anyone out there in the audience who may not get that reference and is just meeting you for the first time, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and what you do here?
Yeah, everyone that's out there. So the run team is take some of the cool stuff that purpose, and then we also have that play around into hopeful.
For being here. Before we get started as well, a quick
Okay,
reminder.
here we go.
Do yourself a favor, make sure you've got your Bungie and your Twitch account linked to make sure you don't miss out on the Twitch drop that's going on right now. And if you also go ahead and subscribe to any channel in the Marathon directory, you can get a special little cat badge next to your name to go ahead and show everyone that you were here today. So go out there, find a streamer you haven't found before, and make sure and drop a sub out there and share the love. And also, if you have dropped your sub here on Marathon the Game, and now we have a big show again lined up. We've got some gameplay on the way coming up very shortly. We had a chance to go ahead and work with some creators and press very recently, and we're going to show you what they thought of the game. And of course, again, I'll repeat myself, but we've got something really great for you at the end of the show, so make sure and stick around. But again, the purpose of today is to show off some gameplay. Mr. Joe Ziegler, I'd love to hand the mic to you for this next part.
Yeah, so before we get started, obviously there's a lot to talk about today. We have a little bit of a taste to show you about what our game is about, just to kick us off, so we can put some images to what we've been talking about here. So let's take a look.
Now, one of the things I gotta say about Bungie is that their art style is impeccable. They have some of the most striking visuals in the video game industry. So this is a 1080, right? Yeah. And so here we are.
The end of all things. But the dream is not over. My dream. Yours. Now. Run.
Got hero shooter elements. Okay. I just saw a shield there. That means that it's gonna have hero shooter elements. Now, one of the best and worst things about like extraction shooters is that the games are heavily skewed in the favor of squatted up games, which is common in most tactical shooters or even team-based games in general. But they're heavily skewed if you've got a team that you're working with. So one of the things I do hope that they can incorporate is either a solo mode or a random queue mode. So that way you're not getting pegged up against squatted up games against other players, where people that are squatting up should be playing against other people that are squatting up.
Do yourself a favor, head over to our Discord at discord.gg/marathonthegame. And of course, if you're here in Twitch chat with us today, then you've already done yourself a big favor. Members of our community and moderation teams are going to be going out and looking for folks to drop codes to as well, to make sure that you can get priority access.
Yeah, we know.
So I'm today, but
This first one we all saw. But honestly, you saw a first glimpse of some of what's going on in Marathon, our extraction shooter that we're creating over here. And it's got a little bit of everything. It's got some runners in there. It's got some weapons in there. It's got some crazy stuff happening, but yeah.
Yeah, a little taste of the weapons in there. You saw some alternate weapon actions. The flip scope is in there, so weapons are going to do more than just shoot, obviously. It's a Bungie game. We got to really push things Yeah, a lot of runner abilities are in there as well. The UESC, obviously a little taste of the UESC and what they're capable of. Yeah, a lot of awesome stuff.
And some fun world interactions too. Like there's that sequence where the shutters go down and then everything goes wrong for the team that's in that room.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. An
but
environmental
yeah,
effect
it's
in the
pretty
game
cool to see
is
those things.
awesome.
Everything goes wrong, the Andy Salisbury story. Mr. Ziegler, so why are we making Marathon? Why is Bungie going into the extraction shooter space?
I mean, extraction shooters are something that are a passion of all of ours. Like, we really like the idea of bringing this experience that we've all enjoyed, which is this kind of intense survival-based experience where you are frequently unsure of what's going to happen next, but you're on that adventurous ride of it. You know, it's like, we talk about it sort of like it's a horror story that's kind of unfolding before you. And testing yourself to see if you can survive it. And we really wanted to take that and sort of, I don't know, bring a lot more people into it. When you love something, you really kind of want to just, you know, attract others to it, and so you can have a bigger party with it. And so, yeah, we've been doing a lot of work to make that happen.
Yeah.
You know?
I really do think that Marathon will make or break this genre, probably more so than anything else. It'll really see if whether or not this could ever become a mainstream game. You know, right now it's a very niche
So when I started at Bungie,
genre.
it was
It's
on the
very
multiplayer
niche.
team. And I am a competitive person in my nature. I really enjoy PvP.
So if this one
and
doesn't,
so having to take that
if this
in
one
the
doesn't like
Marathon
garner a huge
game
population
and think
of
about every
players
single
that
angle
wants
of
to
every
sustain
design,
itself within the
knowing
game,
that there will
then
be
it'll
other
definitely be
human
a
beings
tell that
in, around,
this is
and
not
on the
going to
other
be the
side
next
of it.
battle
It's just
royale
been
game.
fascinating and really
This genre will
exhilarating
just
for
never be
myself
that.
personally, and I also know for the team.
It's been really exciting to see. And, you know, obviously, you mentioned we saw a lot. We saw some runners.
So there's a lot of eyes on this game
Mr. Witz,
because
can
of
you do me
that.
a favor and help introduce these 4 runners that are going to be available when the closed alpha test begins?
Yeah, for sure. We'll have 6 runners at launch, but we're focusing on the core 4 here for they're going to be in the alpha. So going left to right, we have Locust. Locust is our soldier kind of fantasy, our soldier kit, all about push forward gameplay, right? The first one
So
in,
these are 4
trying to get as many
classes.
picks as possible, right? Against either the UESC or other players. Next we have Blackbird. It's a very reconnaissance-based kit. All about like figuring out where players and enemies are in general and punishing poor positioning.
I get that they
Glitch
want
is like
creative
our agile
names.
disruptor kind of kit, all about pushing forward, disrupting enemy teams and what they're doing, and getting out and kind of having that kind of cycle. Void is our stealth boy, our sneaky boy, all about throwing down smokes, going a full active camo cloak into the darkness, getting some reses, and then taking some people by surprise. So yeah, this is our core 4 right now for
Very
alpha.
exciting. A lot of different play styles to choose from out of the gate. And
His
even
art
furthermore,
style's wild,
Joe Cross,
I'm not gonna lie.
also, if
It's
anyone's not
pretty
following
crazy.
Joe Cross on Twitter, do yourself a favor and do so. But you've been
I get that they
sharing
wanted
some art with
to
these
go with
runners
some,
pretty recently,
cool
out there on
names
Twitter
for
with
these
everyone.
different classes,
You know, before the
but
show,
I
we were
do
talking a
feel
little
like
bit,
the
and I've heard this
names
come
are
up
a
lot,
little
but, you know,
bit
you guys have been working off of this concept of
too
graphic
abstract.
realism. Can you tell us a little bit
So,
about what that is
I
and
don't
what
know.
that means for the design here?
Yeah, it's one
Usually
of
I
our
just
ingredients.
say if you're
that
gonna have
we
a
sort of
class-based
conjured
system
up
into your
to
games,
help
keep
us
it simple.
define the visual world. For these
Recon,
runners, you know,
assault, support,
the first thing we wanted to make
engineer,
sure was
whatever
their
the hell you
visual
wanna call 'em,
fantasy
just keep it
reflected the
simple,
gameplay
you know?
fantasy well. And then we sort of have
whatever,
our
not a big deal.
unique
Little minor
recipe
gripe.
of influences and inspirations for the reimagining of this world. And one of those sort of constraints we've created is this idea of graphic realism, where we kind of reduce the amount of geometry, we limit our materials, we use a lot of graphic design and color, and we sort of use it as a tool to onboard artists who are working on the project. And then it doesn't hurt to have a world-class concept team cranking this stuff out. That's sort of the origin of a lot of these designs.
Yeah. And, you know, obviously the world of Marathon has so much legacy to it as well. You know, as a kid who grew up playing it, I know it well myself. But, like, what's it been like stepping into this world?
It's amazing. For art geeks out there, the sort of the father of the Marathon visual world in a lot of ways
wow.
is this guy Craig Mullins, who you see art represented on the left. Started out as a fan.
Like some kind of spine that
then
they're
got
holding? Is he
incorporated into
holding
the
like
IP
some kind of
officially by
weird
Bungie.
spine?
So his legacy looms super large, and we've always tried to, pay attention, pay homage, make sure we were doing justice. And you can see here in the center, this is kind of a proto-runner we developed early in the process to make sure that, our sort of approach to graphic realism and style lined up and sort of represented that. And then on the right here, sort of an evolution into one of our actual runners here, Blackbird, with a similar fantasy and composition. So I think it's working out well. and I think we're doing something new, but also sort of looking back.
It's like a 3-panel study on how to hold the spine, right? Is what you're looking at.
Right,
Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah.
Is it a spine?
I don't know. It could be.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, that said, if anyone out there in Twitch chat as well has any questions, go ahead and drop them in. We're going to try and answer as many as we can. We're going to be showing, again, a lot of stuff today. So if you've got anything that comes to mind, please feel free to throw it in there. Folks on the community team are going to be keeping an eye out. But, we've obviously got a chance to go ahead and dive a little deeper. We've done some telling. Let's go ahead and do some more showing by taking a bit of a deeper dive into some more Marathon gameplay.
Let's do it.
So we get to see more gameplay finally. All right, let's see what this game's about. Gameplay overview. Given the art design that they're going with, it looks like being stealthy is going to be really difficult. Like in games like Hunt Showdown, it's really easy to be stealthy because of the fact of how much foliage covers you.
You are a runner, a cybernetic mercenary who's given up their human form for a biosynthetic shell with unique abilities and stats, capable of both tactical and fast-paced combat.
That's why they have invisibility, though.
Here you'll fight in a crew of
artistically, you can't see them, but then they have abilities that allow you to be invisible.
You'll face rival runners in zones of up to 18 players.
18,
countless
okay.
security forces, and otherworldly threats. To scavenge the remains of a lost colony for glory and fortune. The environments of Tau Ceti 4 are filled with weapons, materials, and equipment you can scavenge throughout the map. Before deploying, you'll strategically build your loadout and select a runner to ensure you're equipped for the run ahead. Your
Traditional
objective is simple.
extraction shooter systems.
Get in, gather as much loot as you can.
Now, one of the big things I wonder if it's
Die,
going to lean heavily
and
into
all your gear will be
RPG
up
elements
for
or more
grabs.
skill-based shooting.
Survive, and your loot can be taken into future runs as you grow in power and fill your vault. Death is inevitable, but it's never the end. Think quickly on your feet and outplay your opponents, and in your next run, you and your teammates will be the ones coming out on top. And even if you're down on your luck, factions can sponsor you with a fresh loadout, so you can get right back into the fight. Bungie brings its best-in-class first-person multiplayer action to the forefront. Dynamic and tactile gunplay, runners with unique playstyles, and customizable builds create highly dynamic and strategic
That's actually
team
really
fights.
cool.
Whether you're on a zero-to-hero run or high-rolling
These
with powerful
environments.
gear, you'll need to use your best judgment when you decide which fights to pick and how.
Taking a
Because no
lot of
matter how geared
gameplay
you
elements
are,
from
players with skill and
from
strategy
Destiny, I can see
will
a lot
always
of
have
it.
the edge. Marathon is designed to be played in crews with contextual pings, shared objectives, and down but not out to streamline playing with your friends. Death is not the end. And if you're the last one standing, you can overcome the odds to revive your teammates and get out with your hard-earned loot. And if you believe your skills alone are enough to conquer any challenge, we give you the freedom to opt out of crew fill to take all the glory for yourself as a solo runner.
Hold up. What is that?
All to conquer any challenge. And if you believe your skills alone are enough to conquer any challenge, we give you the freedom to opt out of crew fill to take all the glory for yourself as a solo runner.
Basically, you can play it solo, but you're not in a bunch of solo games. It's basically you're in a game all by yourself against trios. So if there are 18 players and all of them are squatted up and you play alone, then you're playing against other teams by yourself. That's for
No two
streamers
runs in
and shit like
Marathon
that
ever
want
play
to
out
show
the
off their
same.
skill.
With dynamic events, variable weather, and unpredictable players, you'll have to adapt on the fly if you want to survive. Each run has a time limit, and anything can happen while you're chasing your objective. Looking to unlock upgrades or increase your faction reputation? Slip into the shadows as Void and ghost past your enemies.
This is what makes
Search the
extraction
map
shooter
for
so
rare
much fun. It's a
materials and
sandbox.
profit opportunities
The amount
without being
of
discovered.
Variables you have to keep
teams and
track
steal their
of
loot?
is
Bring in
overwhelming,
Glitch
which makes
with
it really fun
agility
because
and
no
your strongest
two fights are
weapons
ever the
to
same.
disrupt rival crews. Running support for your friends. Grab extra equipment, shield charges, and a specialized backpack to be the lifeline they need. You're always free to experiment with team compositions, and the only limit to how you want to play your runner is your loot and imagination. Endgame challenges, ranked play, discovering secrets,
Nice, they have
seasonal
ranked play.
storytelling, community events, and more all await you in Season 1, where you and your friends will start to unravel the mysteries.
They shouldn't be talking
of
about
Tower
Season 1 right
74.
now, unless it's a free-to-play game. They should not be talking about that.
Remember, you're only ever one run away from your next big score.
Too soon to be talking about seasonal-based content. I know that's the norm nowadays, and everyone expects it, but it's too soon to be talking about stuff like that.
All right. It's a decent amount of gameplay. All right. Let's get into breaking this down. So I think for starters, again, you know, as we touched on before the break, Bungie has such a rich history with Marathon. You know, Joe Cross, from your standpoint, facilitating this gameplay with your art style, again, what was it like kind of approaching this from your perspective? What were you looking to do?
You know, build on a legacy. The narrative of Marathon is incredibly rich and like inspirational, easy sort of inspiration for art. I also love just sort of having the keys to this car from this era, working on a game from this era. I love older games. I love the way the games look from the PS1, PS2 era. So there was a lot for us, and you know, like I said, paying homage to some of the great sort of iconic artists of the time. So
yeah, and also we had some keen-eared folks in chat. I think it's Joey Wolfinder asked if this is Ben Starr. Yep, Ben Starr was the narrator of that piece. Excellent ear.
Great voice, right?
Yeah, super cool. Yeah,
Wonderful voice.
he's almost an Andrew Witz, but he does his best. But all right, I'm gonna put you on the spot with a tough one, Mr. Joe Ziegler.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite runner?
Ooh, controversial question. I play a variety of them, but I will say probably the one I end up playing the most is Blackbird, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Any Blackbird mains out there? I like playing Blackbird because it's a great crew runner. Like, it's in terms of being able to provide a lot of information, provide a lot of support. It's also a great runner that's kind of helps to counter a lot of strategies that can occur, especially ambush strategies that happen. Also to catch Void out of position if Void's trying to hide. So yeah, there's a lot of versatility to how you can play it.
Very fun. Mr. Witz, I think you and I share the same main. I got to ask as well, who's your go-to runner?
Oh, I split my time between Locust. I'm a very push-forward kind of player, as Joe reminds me all the time, because I'm pushing too much, too
You don't
often.
even have a W key. It just goes.
I just love to go fast forward. That's right.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, that push forward gameplay that Locust kind of has, right? Being like the first to try and get a pick, you know, seeing somebody out of position, going for that pick. Also, I like to play glitch a lot too. Again, like, I really love that disruption playstyle. I love just finding an enemy crew trying to exfil, trying to extract, and then like taking like the arm cannon and just knocking them out of like the zone.
So a
And now
common
they're
thing that
trapped
happens
with
in a lot
me.
of extraction
Hopefully my
shooters is a
teammates,
tactic called ratting.
Joe.
I'm scanning.
Ratting is when you
I'm looking
are
for enemies
hiding
ahead, yeah.
by the exit,
To
waiting
that
for
same
the
end,
enemy
actually, as you
players
guys kind
to
of
come
discuss
to
the
that
runners,
area
Destas in
or
chat
to ambush
asks,
them.
what's the pacing targets
And
of the gameplay?
ratting
Are
is
there
one
any
of the
movement or
most
traversal mechanics?
controversial elements of
There
extraction
are a lot
shooters
of
because
traversal
it's
mechanics inside of the game.
because it's
But
an
it
ambush
varies-
strategy.
Your effectiveness
A
varies
lot of
per
times there's
runner.
not a lot that you
Yeah,
can
like
actually
everything,
counter
like, we're
with.
making like a
but a
like
lot
a
of
survival
recent
sandbox, which means
extraction
everything
shooters have
kinda
been
has to have
adding
cost, right?
mechanics
And
to
so,
kind of like anti-rat
if you want
because it's
to
a
go
very
fast,
controversial
like if you want to go
play
fast,
style.
like Locust has like a super sprint, so to speak. Like they have leg jets that kind of come on to help you sprint even faster. That causes heat. So basically, it's almost like a stamina system, but we call it heat because we're these awesome mercenary cyborgs, right? Where like the body overheats, and so this character has like some mobility, but you overheat quite a bit. So that's kind of the cost that's there, and so that's what pushes us into like finding implants that maybe like expand like how much like your heat meter, and also give you more agility, so you can even go even faster, right? So yeah, there's a lot of cost in the game in terms of when we place a mobility thing in there, we really want to make sure. It's like, how does this affect the pace, and how does it affect the overall survival sandbox?
So one of the big things about this game is that they got to have something that really differentiates them from the rest of the format, like the rest of the other competitors. So they got to have a unique gimmick.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, while we're talking about kind of those finer details, which I'd love to still kind of bug you a little bit, in Marathon build crafting is a big deal. What does that mean in the world that you guys are building?
Yeah, and so like the runners are essentially like a base, right? And so each runner has, they have a bunch of implants that you can kind of find that do kind of wild things, and like as they go up in rarity, right? There's a lot of stats, so you can increase your resistance to certain things. So like Tox is one, so you can essentially be poisoned, right, as our Tox, and so you can build resistances to that. You can increase your agility. There's shields, obviously, to make you a bit more durable. We have cores. Cores are really cool. They basically give you like extra passives. And at the base rarity, like they have these kind of passive that you kind of play around. At the highest rarity, they are specific to the runner kit that you have, the runner you're playing. And what they do is they really augment your abilities wildly, right? So you can, you know, you're doing one thing, and then you get like a core specifically for glitch.
So the question is, how much power does that offer? Because
like, that's
some games go way too far with the power difference, and then it becomes more of an RPG shooter than it is an actual like skill-based shooter.
Cores,
and
weapons,
that can be very, you know,
weapons
polarizing.
have like a pretty cool progression too. We have gold mods, which are kind of like the highest end of the attachment pool. They're essentially like exotics in our game, right? What is the exotic version of this Magnum that can do some wild stuff? So yeah, like really, it's the entire package together is what the build crafting experience is in Marathon.
That's super exciting. And actually, to that same end, we got a question in chat as well from, I think, Firex is how you pronounce it. How many players are going to be in each map?
Varies per map.
Yeah, it varies per map.
Got it.
The footage that people have seen a lot of, Dire Marsh, we support up to 18 players.
Excellent. Okay.
Every map is going to have a different player pool?
To that same end, I know we talked a little bit about Void earlier as well. Lars, can you walk us through
That's
maybe
kind of an
your
interesting
play style when
approach.
you're approaching any of these runs?
Sure, yeah.
Let's go ahead and sell out the best strategy.
I have to give away my secrets. So Void is really fun for me because it leans into this part of my personality that is like very devious. And so, you know, if you go on a run with me, I'll be like, hey, any claymores you see, let me know. And I'm putting those in my backpack, and I'm doing crazy things like, okay, so Void has a prime ability that sends out, I think you saw it in the video, it sends like a wall of smoke that sort of like your home base when you do that, it's portable. Because when you go in that, you become invisible, you get automatic active camo. So I'll do things like set that up to make people believe I'm doing one thing and then do another. So a lot of subversive things. I'll go in there and I'll claymore the inside, right? If someone comes in after me, they're gonna have a very bad time. But I also do things like I'll go to a place in the zone where there's high tier loot, and I'll claymore it up, and then, you know, close all the doors and leave and be like, I wonder if anyone's gonna show up. And then sure enough, you know, maybe 5 minutes later, I see the shield crack in the HUD, and I'm like, yes, you know, I can go back and see what's going on. So yeah, that's how I like to play.
Yeah. How about you, Joe Cross? What's your go-to?
If you know me, you know.
Ooh. My stream is dropping real quick here. Connecting. Okay. My stream disconnected. You gotta let it reconnect real quick here. Come on, reconnect. There we go. Successful. There we go. Okay. Back at it.
No, I'd rather look good and lose. So I generally pick the runner with the coolest helmet, and in this lineup, I think that's clearly Blackbird. As far as my play style, I'm typically just a decoy. So
It's like, Joe, go over there.
yeah, exactly. I am
Look
the
really
worst.
great. over
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Just stand in the open
Yeah.
for a little bit. Yeah.
So that's the end of my run story.
Fair. Well, we want to thank you all for your collective sacrifice. We appreciate it.
Collective sacrifice.
So actually, to that same end, obviously we do a lot of playtesting here internally. Witz, I know you mentioned you've got a folder of some of your best plays, but what are some of your most memorable runs so far?
Some of my memorable runs are really when I think I'm going to be doing one thing, right? Like, okay, I'm going to do a contract. I'm going to be going here. I got to go into this room. I got to interact with this device. And I think it's like,
Uh-oh. My shit's dropping again. My network is taking a dip. What's going on here? Okay, I think we're back again. Yeah, okay. Internet's taking a bit of a dip. Getting some bottlenecking going on here with my internet. It'll sort itself out in just a moment here, but it is definitely on the network side. Why is the internet dropping so bad? What is going on here? Well, while it's still trying to reconnect, we're gonna keep going. We are gonna keep going.
I'm safe. Like, I'm kind of doing like a routine thing. I can get in and get out if I'm like smart about it and really kind of listen for what's going on. Like, there's no UESC around, there's no players around. And oftentimes there's another player, like the best moments is there's another crew that are going for the exact same thing. And there's this moment of like, you're about to turn the key to get into a locked room, and then the other team is right there, and you're like, oh crap. Like, and then you're like, this is all out war in like a hallway that seems to be like a regular hallway, but now it's just like it just gets crazy. And so I think those are the peaks that happen where there's these tense moments where you're trying to do something that lead to these very quick crescendos where, these mercenaries kind of going crazy. In other way, like all these players are jumping.
You make it sound like you're playing so carefully, but you're not.
Listen, the tactics are happening fast.
Okay.
They're
It's just processing power. Is what it is.
Yeah, the math is going. Like, it's happening.
It's improvisational, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like, runs can obviously entail a lot, but we also have a question from Sharky218. Is loot going to be just weapons, or is there going to be more for
this
people
is
to go
good
after
to
while
know
we're out
right
there in
here.
Tau City?
There's a ton of them.
There's a ton of them.
Okay.
Yeah, there's implants, there's cores, there's equipment, there's
Consumables.
Grenades.
Consumables, yeah.
Talk about grenades.
Yeah, there's grenades.
I mean,
We have a bunch of different types of grenades in the game as well that you can loot in the world. We have valuables, we have backpacks, attachments, weapons, materials, keys.
and there's a
of
bunch of
stuff.
stuff too that we're just, we call valuables, but like there's times when you're running low on money and you're like, I just need to do a valuables run right now, and I need to pick up these things and get my money, into my space bank. So.
Space Bank, yeah.
That actually is a good segue from, and I'm not making this name up, Ballin' Hobo asks, what do I do with the loot when I extract? Like, why does it matter in the long run?
Yeah, there's a variety of reasons. So a lot of it was related to sort of our factions and contract system. But if you want to talk a little bit about that, Lars.
Yeah, we've got this entire system we call factions. You're doing contracts, they're like missions, and you are being greeted originally by a AI representative because you are a mercenary. You don't really have allegiance to anyone. They are going to pay you to do these jobs, and so they'll give you these missions to do. And
This
as
is
you're
one of the
doing these
biggest gripes
missions,
I
like you
have
said,
with
sometimes you'll
extraction
run
shooters in
into,
particular,
danger,
is
but
that
the cool thing
they
about,
tend
I think,
to
a lot of the faction, the
struggle
contract
with-
system is like
they tend to
you
struggle
could
with
complete
keeping
the,
the
download
player
the,
interest for long periods of time because it lacks
from
a
this one area
certain
on
level
one
of
the
progression
zones.
that
And
is really
you're doing
needed.
the thing, and you've sort of done it. So even if you die, you've still made progress there, which I think is a really cool
That's good.
aspect of that feature. But then there's also this other meta layer where as you're working with the different factions, they allow you to upgrade yourself over time, and so you can increase your heat meter, you can increase your loot speed, things like that.
I was gonna say, you're trying to get as much loot as possible to meet the challenge of the world, right? Like essentially, different missions get harder over time, right? Which means you want to have more loot on you so you can survive longer, so just in general, be able to do fight all the different, hostile entities in the world, like get through there's a POI on a zone that's heavily fortified by UESC and all of the different units that are there, the snipers, the assault units, like you want to be able to not only withstand that and players. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to get loot.
And honestly, like a lot of the loot translates into things like upgrades, that you utilize through the factions. But there's also an in-game store called the Black Market, where you can use a lot of your currency and things like that to actually re-equip yourself if you go on a bad run, or to upgrade yourself if you need anything from that space. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons to get a lot of good loot out. I don't think I'm ever short of reasons to get loot out.
That just says something else about me, though. I'm just a loot goblin. So sometimes extraction shooters also can be seen as kind of hardcore, maybe tough to get into.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you guys are doing
goes.
to make them easier to dive into?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that we could talk about. One is we are obviously investing, besides doing a little bit more onboarding in the front end, so players can understand a little bit about what the nature of the game mode is. We're also doing a lot to make combat something that's a little bit more approachable, but also just equally as deep, and have pretty wide things. But I think Andrew could talk about it.
Yeah, we want to make this is like a Bungie shooter, right? We want to make sure it's approachable. We nail those fantasies. Every button press feels awesome, right? And so really trying to bring that kind of morph the Bungie action game into in the survival space, where again everything kind of costs something, right? Getting shot, you're not going to have a limb system where your limb's broken or anything, but you will guns do stopping power, right? Which they can knock you out of sprint, they can slow you down, right? Status effects are still in the game. And so if you are hit with a chem grenade, right, you're gonna be toxed, you can be immobilized, right, which really slows you down, you can be overheated. There's all these things, and that pushes you into using consumables and making sure you have an answer for these things that happen. So we're trying to make sure that you keep the depth of the survival game, but the approachability of the action game, right? And so that's how we're trying to marry that together.
And that's the big thing that these games are struggling with, is figuring out a way to
and you don't have a lot of see your loot kind of going down. We have the sponsored kits,
as addicting as possible
earlier, where it's
to keep people from having one bad run and just checking out. That's something that extraction shooters struggle with.
Something or consumables. That's kind of the floor for what we think you can be really you can be capable in the environment, and actually fight other players that actually are kitted out. So you're never feeling the goal is that you can always clutch, even if you find somebody who's completed kitted out in really high-end gear, because that's your payday, right? That's the beauty of the moment of oh my god, I took this player, and they have the best shield in the game. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there'll be a lot of good pointers for folks at home taking notes for when they get a chance to get into the alpha, but we'd be remiss if we also didn't mention how a big part of what we do here at Bungie is working alongside our community, which is why we've also had the chance since about 2022 to work with hundreds of different creators in our community as well, to go ahead and get some of their feedback. So to those of you out there that have joined us, thank you very much for your time and your opinions. They mean a lot. But no need to listen to me talk about it. We actually just last week had a bunch of folks in here to go ahead and play test the very same alpha build that some of you will have a chance to.
Oh, I got AI over here like crazy.
Oh my god, you didn't shut up. Are we killing them or ignoring them?
AI with a snipe up above is looking at me.
I need some bits ammo. You guys find me? There's a green punk right there.
There's like 36 underneath.
Oh yeah, here I think.
Player. Dead one.
I hit one for a kill, but I'm
1, 2.
down. That's all of them.
Yep.
Actually, you want to do the HPT? Over here. That's what I do.
Either way, I'm getting shredded right now, so I gotta be...
Clear the AI outside first. They're just gonna beam us if we don't get rid of them.
We gotta... Yep.
What?
That's a purple one.
Oh, hell. Wait, the one that's at fire like 5 knees. Oh,
The Grenadiers, yeah. They're pretty great. What do you have on you, little guy?
oh, one of the guys you killed had just been weapons on him. Poor guy.
Oh, mechanics kit. That's what we need, right? Use mechanical status effect.
I'm using that.
Yeah, I'm inside with them. When you have the mechanics kit, it does take anything. You're just good. Yeah. I'm unlocking the box. Yeah, dropping in big ones too. They've got long shots in too. Oh. Yeah. That's gotta be.
I played one shield.
A lot of combat for extraction shield. That's a lot of combat.
Oh my god, I almost that. I realized.
Where are they?
They're on the balcony, like south 200.
Pretty hard to see them,
I got one
too.
Nice.
The environmental effects are hard to see.
That's
Annihilated,
I'm
dude. Oh my god.
I'm out of ammo,
Yeah, I would say it's a self-res you
yeah,
can.
there's a sniper.
freaking no! It's a Brian! Kill him, he's a fiend, dude.
I'm coming to you, friend.
Yeah, I see him, I see him.
Don't underestimate this guy.
Oh my god, that's it! He killed 2, I think it's 1v1. Ben, you knocked 1, I knocked another.
Good stuff. I literally only have a sniper.
These are NPCs that are harassing them.
The knock I had was way over here. I don't see anybody over there yet.
He's been quiet for an awful long time. I reckon he's gone for res. I see him.
Right there. Yep.
Yeah.
Tell me if they red.
There's a guy. Yeah, he's
Rezzing this game's pretty
distance.
quick. Holy shit, that might be a class thing.
Sniped a sniper.
Yeah, right on me. This player. I mean, very weak up there. I'm underneath.
Are they where we got down? Nice.
Knock one.
Coming.
Got one left.
I get shots on the right side, like you for them.
No, if they're close.
I got no tags. Oh.
There.
You got eyes?
Yeah, A1.
Oh, is that him up there? Is he upstairs inside?
Yes, sorry, he was. Yeah, hear him. Or is that USAC?
No, you said we're shooting something in there. They were shooting something in there.
Design.
I think
Boss,
they kind of built a ringer
boss.
group, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty confident.
They built a God Squad, you could say. I feel like we might be the God Squad.
That was good. That was a good run.
Yeah.
We got knife some AI, grab some gutter.
We can go to field maintenance.
Yeah, a loot container key. Isn't there one of those around here?
Yeah, it's right here. Where did I just hear that thought? Whoa! I knifed one.
Oh my god, I'm dead. Yeah. Yeah. Something's sucking me.
Stop sucking him! It's a purple
Stop sucking him.
UESC reinforcement signal detected.
I found a purple enemy. I heavy knifed it 4 times and had to dump a full mag into it.
Really?
Mechanic I would like to see come back in some of these kinds of games would be in Ghost Recon Future Soldier, when you ever downed a player, you could interrogate them effectively to reveal other characters' locations, or like hack them is what they would call. It's something I would actually like to see come back in these games.
I'm saved. What's the question marks again? That are on the map?
Oh, I think those are the players, right?
Huh? Like
the
this?
cash players?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
Players.
Okay.
One is broken. I'll get a purple shield. I knocked one.
I knocked one.
Combat in the game looks fantastic, though.
Found him.
Prepare for increased hostile action.
Glitch is moving. Glitch is moving. Behind. Yeah, Glitch is behind you at the moment. White shield. White shield.
Oh, she's scared. She's scared.
Down. Down. Very good.
Very, very nice. I called the purple. Yeah, I want the frickin' purple. There's a green on this
Purple shield. Who had that?
Me.
All right, so obviously having those creators in was a whole lot of fun. Getting to work with both creators and players alike has been a privilege. It's been a great time getting to set that up, and of course, I promise I'm not saying this just because I work on the social media team here, but if you head over to our YouTube channel, we have a full 20-minute version of that. So youtube.com/MarathonTheGame is where to find us. Also, same with all of our other socials, as long as I'm at it. But Lars, obviously, again, like we talked about before that video, we're familiar with working with our community really closely, but have we ever done it this early or at this scale before?
So I've been at Bungie for a while now, since the Halo 3 days, and I think the thing, even since my time, we've been really good about is working with players, working with the community. It's something we take pride in. And on this game in particular, yeah, we brought people in, players in, much earlier into the process than I think we ever have before, and it's given us really good insight. You know, we tell them when they show up, be brutally honest, because that's how we learn, that's how we understand what needs to change, what needs to get better.
But you also got to make sure that that player feedback doesn't influence your vision of the game, because
these folks were all here last week. You guys were
there are a lot of players that don't offer great feedback because they're so focused on their play experience, they forget about what the play experience of the average gamer might be, because you know they're streamers or content creators. They play games for a living and they put hundreds and tens of thousands of hours into gaming. So you got to think about that a little bit and make sure that it doesn't compromise their vision.
Like tens, and you know, Lupo was in there, and but yeah.
But it's still good to get their feedback because they can look at it with a critical lens. But they got to make sure that they balance their vision with that of the feedback.
I'm gonna throw Nick under the bus for a moment here. Like apparently he was on the team with Brian and Jeff Keighley, and they were not having success. Y'all were like destroying them, the creators. And, yeah, it's probably your team that was destroying them. So I was brought in as like a hired hired Gunn to help get Jeff through, and
thank you.
I did my job.
That's funny. But as a matter of fact, that's something to be taking note of. If Jeff Keighley,
something that he's used to,
that's going to be your average gamer,
also
right?
you were
That's going to be your everyday average gamer. That someone who works every day, are they going to be able to succeed? Not necessarily succeed, but
I mean, it was awesome. It's
stick
awesome
with the
playing the
game,
game for so long, right? And seeing other people play the game is just a great feeling, right? For like the whole team. You get to see things that you designed
attention
for
is one of the most difficult things about extraction shooters. You got to figure out a way to keep that player attention
by
consistent.
Other players that take refuge by like we're a heavily fortified area, and watching the UESC equalize a little bit. Moments like that was great. There was another fight that was like it looked so fun, but also hilarious, but also like really like it was like a great time, but also really tense. There was two crews that were fighting under the dire marsh map. There's a bunch of tunnels and stuff like that, and they were fighting in the tunnels, and the fight was literally like almost 1-by-1s, like 3 and 3, like constantly moving towards each other and fighting in the hallway. The person in the front dropping meds for people in the back and changing positions, and that fight went into like little vents as well. So it was like this it was this hilarious chase that was like it was super tense because you didn't know exactly whether you were going to get third party, and they were just the volume in the room kept on going up from those two crews because they were just like, where are they going to get flanked? There's another vent right there that could pop up from there, and they were shooting vents just like out of just pure paranoia. It was awesome to watch.
It's a good balance to strike, obviously, yeah. And you, again, we were mentioning you got to play. Were there any other creators you got to dive in with?
Yeah, I was on a team with Valkyrie and Katamina, and we had a lot of fun. There was like a couple moments where we bunkered down underneath a greenhouse in the tunnels underneath. Tunnels are dangerous, and they were fun. But we basically created like a little claymore nest down there, and so we were baiting them down into it. And yeah, it was pretty successful. I'm telling you, the claymore strats are good. Yeah. Don't sleep on claymores. They're
pretty solid.
Yeah.
Lars is like, I know.
Yeah.
So, you know, even in addition to these creators, you know, the legacy of Marathon's community goes so long and goes so far rather. You know, as someone who's played a lot of Aleph 1 in the past as well myself, back on my Titanium G4 PowerBook so long ago, bringing in the Aleph 1 team was really, really exciting. You guys had a chance to work with them as well, isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's super exciting to sort of connect to the heritage of Marathon, right? Like to keep that alive as we're sort of building this new world. And so working with the Aleph 1 team has been really awesome with the Marathon Classic on Steam. Is the release that they had, as well as the Marathon Classic 2, I think, is on Steam as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, both of those, it's like sort of connecting the threads, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Sort of remembering the past as we're sort of building this new, re-envisioning in a lot of ways of what Marathon is.
Yeah. Actually, kind of on this topic as well, about the dangers of the world, we do have a question from Twitch chat. Are there dangerous PvE encounters? Obviously, you've mentioned that the UESC is out there, pardon me, and you should underestimate them at your own peril. But can you tell us a little bit more about maybe some of those emergent threats that await players?
Yeah, absolutely. There's the UESC security units that are out there. There's a bunch of different types that do different things, so watch out for them. We also have ticks, which are these wonderful, surprising, explodey fauna. Yeah, they run at you. They run at you, explode on you, and you have to shoot the nests actually to get rid of them essentially. Otherwise, they'll keep coming. And there's a bunch of hazards and stuff that are like gonna be on the map as well. Like we have a bunch of like tux rooms and all kinds of surprises that await players. And yeah, in the alpha there's a few, but
what's the scariest UESC unit to you?
The scariest unit? The Ghost Commander for me, for sure. The Ghost Commander, their ability is like they go into active camo and they actually have clone. They have a bunch of like clones that go out there, so you're not sure which one to shoot.
Interesting
and
that their approaches to bosses, or at least extreme threats,
right? It's like it might be over for you, but
giving them very unique abilities.
The sniper also
that really helps like differentiate, differentiate the gameplay format. That's one of the things I really enjoy about like Hunt Showdown. The bosses are distinct, and that really changes the gameplay flow, especially when you get into a PvP fight when you're stuck inside the boss arena.
They have this rush down.
It can change everything.
Careful of knowing where they're going to be flanking you and rushing you down from. Like, yeah, we're purposely making them these formidable foes that you can't get treasure out of the world easily, and they're guarding it, and they're doing a pretty damn good job.
And you can't ignore them either. Once they're on your set, you kind of gotta figure out a way.
Yes. Exactly.
One of the big things
Also,
I do
too,
have an
we've got
issue
another
with
question
boss
from,
battles in
Shevsky.
certain
Can a team be
areas is
composed
that they tend to
of any
be
number of runner types,
limited
like
to
3
the
Blackbirds, for
area that
example?
they fight
Absolutely, yeah.
in.
There's
And
no
that
restriction
tends to
on
make it a
how
little bit
you
weird
assemble your
because
crew. You
when
can
you
all
get into a
play the
PvP
same. You
into
can
a
create
boss
meme
fight,
comp if you want.
the boss
or
fight
you can
is
diversify a little bit,
secondary to the
and sort of try to
PvP.
use
So you end
each
up
other's
leaving the
utilities,
boss
but
fight arena
we've seen them all.
a lot of the
been really
times
cool
just to
see
deal
kind
with
of
the
different
PvP
combinations
element.
we've seen.
And
But you may
I
never
kind of
know,
wish
like,
the
some
boss
of
would
those
chase
3
you
different,
out
like,
so that
players that are
way
playing
the
Blackbird,
threat of
they
the
have
boss
very
doesn't
different
really
builds of
entirely
what
leave.
they're gearing towards in Blackbird, right? Like they may be some of them, like one of them may actually have implants that allow them to go in active camo. That's not a specific thing for a runner, so we're purposely trying to make it so that you can diversify.
I did see the shield wall comp, which is like basically 3 locusts in like in the playtest from last week. But yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. So again, obviously, it's been so much fun to hear you guys even talking about this game and the experiences you've had. You've been building a world that's really ripe for players to tell their own stories in. Again, with the closed alpha on the way on April 23rd, as players finally get a chance, some of them to jump in. What are some of the stories you're most excited for them to get to dive in and maybe tell themselves?
Oh, so many. I mean, there's so many different stories that I think are that we're looking forward to seeing happen, especially ones that we've never even seen before. But getting onto the planet, like honestly, just trying to survive amongst all of the different threats that exist there. The dying, when our trail says death, it's death. There's a lot of death in the game. The learning from it, the challenging yourself, the getting back up and trying to do something new. It's gonna be exciting. I'm sure there's plenty of other things.
I'm curious, Mr. Cross. What are you expecting?
I mean, I'm have the fortune to launch Destiny and now Marathon. It's always amazing to put something out into the world that you've been working on, sort of in a bubble for 6 years or something like that, and have the players experience the visual world for the first time is amazing. Introducing the IP into the world, sort of beyond the game. Sort of the culture it creates. Always excited to see like what the fans tell us what the game is and what the metas are and what the IP is, and so that exchange is always amazing.
Yeah, check out the Discord. It's getting wild in there right now. How about you? Anything come to mind on your side?
I'm just really excited for folks to discover the content and play with it in interesting ways. We've been making this meal for a bit. It's just time to see folks play, right?
Yeah.
Like we've been making the sandbox for a bit. We've been working together on all the activities and everything in the world, right? It's just going to be exciting to see people react to it organically and learn from it.
Yeah. Very exciting.
I'm also curious to see which runner will be the crowd favorite, out of the end. I have theories.
I know you have many theories.
Yeah.
Well, chat, Discord, let us know. We'd love to hear what you guys are thinking.
Absolutely.
But that brings us to just about the conclusion of what's been a very action-packed show. So for starters, guys, thanks so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
I mean, thank you so much, and thank you everybody out there. Like, our team is literally sitting behind these cameras here, and they're amazing. Like, you should give yourselves a hand, for putting together. Also, there's an immense amount of staff here that has been super gracious and kind to come and help work with us on this. So just want to make sure all of you.
That's right.
Yeah,
do yourself a favor, Andrew.
I
in
get
person
it.
or you're out today.
But let's also focus on the gameplay presentation. I want to see more about the game.
And we're thankful. Got something fun
I get it. We're at the end.
Here just after the show ends. So go ahead and tell them we said hello when you get a chance to drop streams. We've saved just a chance to really touch on the narrative, just both in and out of the game. And we'd love to show you a glimpse of that now. We've had the opportunity to partner with Academy and Emmy Award-winning director Alberto Mielgo to go ahead and show you just a bit of a snapshot of what life is like on Tau Ceti. So we hope you enjoy, but in the meantime, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you all Starside.
Artistry right there. That's really cool. I don't know what it is about this art style that really just pulling me in. That's a bad day. That's a very bad day. That's a very bad day. It's like some kind of crop farm going on here. Oh, what is going on? Oh no. That's a very bad day. Oh, that's a terrible day. Drowning in your vomit like that? Yikes. I'm guessing there must have been some kind of biological attack that must have happened. He's gonna fall to his death. Oh, whoa, whoa. Oh my god! That was rad as hell. Holy crap. There must be some kind of like biological event going on right now. Like some kind of virus. Oh my god. I'm not gonna lie, that pulled me in. They should have opened with this, honestly.
I met a traveler from an antique land who said, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that it sculptor well those passions red which yet survive. Stamped on these lifeless things, the hand, the mark,
really well put together. It's cool.
and the heart that fed, and the heart that fed.
One of these mercenaries are like gathering artifacts from a dead world, effectively, and they sell it on the black market. And with these artifacts that they collect, they're just like their only connection to like humanity.
Once again. As a new shell, as a new shell, feeling.
I mean, it feels just like what it is, right? Like $1 trillion. Like $1 trillion.
Sakaguchi Genetics sent a reminder. Your shell repayment is coming up and will be charged against your line of credit.
Yeah, I know. Do you mind if we skip the formalities this time? Got a big contract waiting down there. So
This is the progression that I would love to see in these kinds of games. When you like get through so many missions or complete a certain amount of contracts, you unlock story bits. Keep you invested. Be right back. Dog's back inside.
Can you identify her?
Yeah, that's my mom. That's your mom.
Now, consider this. Do you recognize this child?
Who are you?
Something about this art style that's really, really pulling me in.
You.
Really?
I'm gonna be excited to show this to my wife later. I'm gonna be so curious to see what she thinks about just this whole trailer. I'm so curious to see her input. It's so enticing and so interesting.
What's that you always tune into? Worth anything?
I don't know, but I like it. It speaks to me.
Let me listen.
Yeah, go ahead.
You ever wonder what happened to these people?
It's not my business.
And this music is. You'll have a tough time finding a buyer.
Good. It's not for sale. Give it to me.
And there, he'll lose it. He'll lose that what he liked so much. Those envies. Why did he hesitate? I'm so curious about the story now. I'm invested. I'm so invested. Yep, and there she goes down. Goes down that version of her.
And on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remain. Nothing beside remain. Round the decay of that colossal wreck. Round the decay. Boundless and bare. Boundless. The lone and level sand stretch far away.
Might be one of the coolest goddamn trailers I've ever seen.
Do you
This trailer is incredible.
child?
I don't know. Is that me?
I'm so invested now. This is cool. This is really cool. Danny, Maria, I wonder, Maria, no, Mario, okay, Hughes, Philip, Patrick, Joseph, Jason. I wonder if these are all the developers. Cool, cool. That's the end of it all. Right. Yeah, that's the very end. Nice. Wonderful trailer. Wonderful trailer. Cannot deny that I found that final trailer was really investing. I kind of wish they started the show with that at the very beginning. That would have got everyone immediately hooked, and then show all the gameplay stuff afterwards as a presentation. I think that they did it all backwards. Nevertheless, good trailers, good gameplay overview. We at least have an idea of what it is, but I'm very curious to see what someone who has played the game, what their input is. And this is where we get to the next video, because this next video right now is going to be covering exactly that. If anyone is familiar with Skill Up is a I guess you can call him a journalist, a gaming journalist, who specializes specifically with covering games and giving his honest critique and viewpoints on it. The title of this one is Marathon Still Has a Long Ways to Go, a hands-on impression. Now, if by the sounds of the title, it sounds like he has got some criticisms. I want to hear the criticisms, because a lot of people that are fans of extraction shooters, because if they're fans of extraction shooters and they love extraction shooters, someone like myself, for example, we look at extraction shooters with extreme biases because we enjoyed the gameplay loop so much that we tend to forget about the actual critique of the game that we need to hear about. What is the flaws of the gameplay design? What are things that they can improve on? As opposed to like just making the game more skill-based. what are elements that's going to keep people logging back in every time, even though they die, you know? One of the biggest issues with extraction shooters is that it has such a retention issue because the feeling of loss is extreme. So they need to figure out a way to mitigate that feeling of loss or create the addicting loop so much stronger that the loss is overridden with going to try again. One or the other, you know? They have to figure out which one of the two. Typically the loot system is usually pretty effective, but when you lose a shit ton of loot, and especially if you got a large amount of profit that can be gained and you lose all that, it can overwhelm the feeling entirely.
A shout out for this video sponsor Lost in Cult. They specialize in thoughtfully designed gaming books, music collections, and other collections based on visually use often more. But you probably Bungie from their prolonged big one. Clicking this video, you probably have 100 questions about Marathon, but you probably have one big one. Is it enough? Is it enough to deliver Bungie from their prolonged period of disruption and uncertainty, a period marked by layoffs and restructure, and a complete upending of Destiny's future development and business model? Is it enough to succeed Destiny as Bungie's next big game? One that will spirit the studio into a new decade of game making the same way that Halo and Destiny did when those games launched? Is it enough for Sony, who bought Bungie for $3.8 billion, a price that now seems astronomical given how the studio has fared since then?
I don't think this is the right question to ask, to be honest. I understand what's at risk, because if Bungie fails again, they could be looking at not only more mass layoffs, but the studio itself is in critical risk. I think that's the wrong question to be asking about whether or not is it enough. I think that the better question to ask is the vision of what they're making enticing? Is it engaging? Is it going to bring people's interest given the current landscape of gaming right now? Is what they're offering on the table truly unique? That's the big question at hand. And aesthetically, world-buildingly, they do. That's one of their mastercrafts. Gameplay-wise, that's the big question.
Sony are not only nursing Bungie on their balance sheet, they're also nursing a very black eye after the failure of Concord and the cancellation of a number of other live service titles. With that track record behind them, Sony really needs Marathon to be a big win. They desperately need Marathon to be enough. Setting aside all those very loaded questions about the legacy of the studio, the commercials, and the crushing weight of expectations, there's a more fundamental is this enough question, and it's this. Is this game enough for us, the people who might want to play it? And hell, who even are those people, since an extraction shooter is hardly the sort of experience that's looking to recruit die-hard Destiny fans? Bungie is looking to build an all-new audience here. And
that's what I'm saying specifically. That's the better question to ask. Is it enough for the player base, for gamers? Is it going to be enough to pull them in? You need a strong vision. And they have a great art style here. This art style is incredible.
Genre that is already pretty well serviced by a number of great games. Set against all of that, is Marathon enough? Well, I've got my own perspective on that since I got the chance to play Marathon last week. Bungie invited me to their studio in Seattle. They generously offered to cover my travel and accommodation costs, but I declined, choosing instead to pay my own costs so that you can be guaranteed truly independent coverage. So,
and I'm going to give my honest input. What I saw from that trailer, that final trailer, really captured my interest from the world. And it's one of the things that I kind of hope that not just the gameplay loop provides that, but I would love it if when you're playing the gameplay loop, whether you win or lose, you develop a progression bar that unlocks more story bits that we just saw, because that story profile that we just saw there is extremely enticing, and I hope they don't abandon that. I hope that's just not some background writing shit or some little bit of cutscenes here and there. I would like to see a full-blown story of that, because that's enticing. That's fascinating.
What do I think about Marathon and that big question?
That could be a great progression loop.
Is it enough? Well, I'll be totally honest with you and say that I don't think anyone can give you an answer to that question right now, because much to my surprise, Marathon isn't as far along as I had hoped it might be, and while I really enjoy many parts of it, the gaps in it made it difficult for me to get a sense of how this is going to launch, and it made it impossible for me to predict where this one day might end up. So at this point, you might be like, uh-oh, what you just said sounds really bad. So I want to really pump the brakes here so no one gets carried away. Marathon is not doing the Concord thing, where the first time we play it is like 2 weeks before it launches. Marathon releases in September of this year, a full 6 months from now. It's getting its first external alpha test at the end of this month. 5 months before its official release, people will be playing this game and giving feedback to Bungie so they can iterate on that feedback. At the same time...
Oh no, that's not good. It's not that far along, and it's a bare bones game, and it's only about to release real soon. That's a very bad problem they have.
There are 300 developers working on this
What is
right
going
now,
on?
and 300 people can get a fair amount done in 6 months. In addition to that, there were significant portions of this experience that I was not able to test, namely a playable map that wasn't available to us during this playtest,
It's possible
and another
that
map
they
which all the
may
Bungie staff are
have
hyping up massively,
locked
going as
some
far as to
content
say
away.
it has like Destiny raid-like mechanics in it. We only got to test 4 of the 6 runners that'll be available at launch. We obviously didn't get to test every single weapon and mod. We couldn't properly test the bounty system. The list goes on and on. So when I say it's hard for me to answer, is this enough? What I'm essentially saying is I have not played enough of this, and the game is still deep in development, so leaping to conclusions at this point would be unfair to the game and to Bungie. Having said all of that, I walk away from my time with Marathon feeling good about some things and not so great about others. As you'd expect, the gunplay is top tier, meeting the industry-leading benchmark that Bungie has maintained since their inception. What you might not expect is how good the enemy AI is here, with NPC enemies providing substantial challenge that make them much more than just resource sinks or noise traps. The visual design is an acquired taste, but in my personal view, it is incredible. I absolutely love it to the point where I want to make it my personality. It's amazing. I can't get enough of it. Sometimes a setting and a visual style can be just enough to pique your interest in something, but in the case of Marathon, I expect that it's going to be more than enough for a bunch of people. Most importantly, that extraction loop is here and it's working. I think it needs a lot more work to get it feeling truly unique, but as a starting point, I will tell you that Marathon is a fun game that does serve up those butt-clenching moments that you hope for from an extraction shooter. However, as I mentioned before, I did find some of the gaps in this surprising, given that Bungie have been working on this for over 4 years now. As it stands, there's really no new player onboarding experience. It's kind of just like a 5-minute tutorial that teaches you the absolute basics.
That's a bad onboarding experience.
Menu and wishing you luck. The game's narrative is right now not really written yet. The narrative team were clear that the narrative framework has been built, aka how Bungie plans to tell a story in Marathon, but that story itself is apparently going to be written between now and launch. Bungie have also made clear that we should also expect a very found lore approach to storytelling, less focused on cutscenes and characters, and more focused on world building and narrative delivered through factional bounties. For me, personally, I walk away from my hands-on time with Marathon glad that I played it, interested to play more, but I also walk away with 2 big questions. Number 1, where is that hook that makes me want to play Marathon over the other extraction shooters that I could be playing, or over the other competitive experiences out there right now?
I'm also going to say this much. One of the things is Bungie is a masterclass at writing. They make some of the most enticing ideas and some of the most creative writing ideas I've seen in FPSs. So I think that's a big mishap there. That could have been a great selling point to the game. I feel like the game went through, from what he's describing, it sounds like the game went through development hell. It sounds like they had an idea, they scrapped the idea and started over something new, and now they're running out of time for their deadline. They still have a lot of time to get a lot done, but I'm not gonna lie, I think they need another year to cook. It sounds like they need more time. This is not good. What I'm hearing right now, this is all red flags to me. That's not good. That's really bad. In my own personal opinion, that sounds really bad. Unless the gameplay loop is just that good. But extraction shooters are very polarizing. So it's going to be hard to sustain a player base like that for a long period of time and have them be patient with what you're selling. I feel like this is a red flag for me that this is an incomplete product they're working on right now. Not just working on, but going to be releasing in 6 months. Unless it's a free-to-play game, which I don't know if that's detailed out yet.
In my time with this game, I was enjoying it, but I couldn't feel that thing that made me go, yes, I can see why someone would want to devote their life to this game. I just couldn't feel that, and so I'm still waiting for it. The other question I had was, is it a good idea to charge a premium price for this? It's launching with 6 runners, 3 maps at launch, and 1 extra map in Season 1.
That is horrible. That is horrible value. No! You're gonna put that. That is a clear case of a game with very limited scope, scale, budget, or they had a fucking hellish time with development hell. There's very little content here. You better hope that your gameplay loop is astoundingly good, and even then, the content that it provides here is too minimal. That is not acceptable. I do not find that to be acceptable. This game is gonna really struggle on launch. It's gonna need something. It's gonna need something.
Is that enough content to justify the price tag? Is this experience?
It was a free-to-play game. It could get away with it, but this is not a free-to-play game.
Many of which are free. Bungie says they want to build this game in collaboration with their community, and I fully support that ambition. But if that's the case, then I don't think you should be charging the community an entry fee. My gut tells me that charging a box price for this is a very, very bad idea. I would be delighted to be proven wrong on that front when Marathon launches later this year.
Game looks cool. I want to play it, but my god, that deters me now. If it's a $70 game, I hope it's a $60 game, but if it's a $70, $80 game, I don't think I'll buy it. It's just, I don't want to throw my money into something like that, no matter how good the gameplay loop is.
Okay, so let's spend a bit of time talking about what exactly Marathon is, and then we can start talking more specifically about its individual
competitors
components.
are offering
Marathon
more already.
is a straight-up PvP extraction shooter. Before I went into this preview session, I had wondered if Bungie were looking to do something more ambitious with the extraction shooter genre. I wondered if they might be using extraction as a foundation for a more persistent, social, story-driven experience, something that might bridge the gap between PvE and PvP, something that might appeal to Destiny players who are, by and large, a PvE-focused audience. If any of those things do exist in Marathon right now, I didn't see them. As someone who's broadly familiar with the extraction subgenre, this felt pretty familiar. There is no social space to run around in with your friends, collecting bounties, maintaining your gear, etc. The game is entirely driven by this menu screen. One option lets you view and select your runner. We'll come back to that very soon. Another option lets you tinker with your loadout and buy gear from the black market. The final option lets you look through factional bounties and factional progression, which is just, more menus. Now, obviously, it is very normal for extraction shooters to do exactly this. With the exception of The Division and its Dark Zone, no other extraction shooter that I can think of has any sort of interactive social space where you can hang out with other players, or interact with factional NPCs in person, or visit specific vendors to get certain items or services. So this is, broadly speaking, par for the course for this genre. But again, this is exactly the sort of thing that I thought Bungie would take a swing at as they look to step into this genre and put their own unique stamp on it. Bungie is a studio that puts social at the core of their experiences, and social definitely lives at the core of Marathon's gameplay, since it is tuned as a 3-player game.
Here's the thing, though. I really wanted to like The Division. I think it's a great concept of a game. I have 2 major issues with the game. One being that the gameplay feedback is really unengaging, meaning gunfights and gun audio, downing players. You don't get that immediate mental feedback. It feels like you're shooting at bullet sponges, or rounds dropping into players feel very RPG-ish. The gameplay feedback that you get from dropping enemies and dropping other players just doesn't feel enticing enough. And 2, obviously was a lot of issues with the gameplay element in the first game, and eventually they did, from my understanding, improve upon it and eventually kind of fix a lot of issues. While they still had a lot of issues, they did definitely fix a lot of prevailing issues. To me, Division 1's PvP had great potential but not fully realized. And I know that in Division 2, from what I've seen about it with content creators that cover how the game evolved, they clearly abandoned the PvP element and made it more of a side content as opposed to it being a core package of the game. The Division's concept of a PvP world or PvE world in line with an internal PvP combat, to me is like one of the coolest concepts that has never been fully realized, where you are engaged with a PvP or PvE role-playing experience, and then you can engage with PvE VP, you know, your extraction shooter element afterwards, as additional content, as well as like, you know, the actual like meat and potatoes of the game. That to me is just something that I think that extraction shooters are really missing out on. You can create a PvP, like an AI infested area that is low risk and teaches people to stay engaged with the game, and then have people go for higher risk gear in PvE areas or PvP areas, with the PvE element, you know, and add all that chaos involved with it too. It's just, I see such a missed opportunity there that I think that all of the extraction shooters have failed to capitalize on. There could be a more persistent social element and a more addictive element that could be utilized, something that is both new player onboarding as well as, you know, competitive player engagement, that still feels pseudo RPG-ish, but more heavily focused on skill-based gameplay.
But it might also have been really interesting to see how that social aspect could have been delivered outside the core gameplay as well. So before diving into that core gameplay loop, I'll just briefly describe everything else that sits around it. So Marathon is not a hero shooter, but it does have heroes, essentially. You play as a runner, which is a 3D printed.
I would say it's more of a class shooter by the sounds of it.
That runner has 2 abilities and 2 passives, and in combination with your loadout
well, I suppose
choices,
hero shooter, because the abilities are so distinct.
Later.
Yeah.
The loadout screen is where you can equip up to 2 weapons, mods for those weapons, a grenade, as well as various core things and shields and implants, all of which provide you various stat bonuses or gameplay perks. You also have a backpack where you can bring whatever you please, but you'll most likely be bringing ammo and consumables, leaving as much free room as possible so you can collect as much loot as you can when you head out. There is a black market shop where you can buy ammo, consumables, and low-level weapons. However, as you unlock factional rep, the offerings at that black market will improve, meaning that later in the season, you'll be able to buy more interesting stuff, so you're not always starting every round with the lowest level weaponry and gear. By the way, the gear you equip does not have any cosmetic qualities. This is a game that will have a cosmetic cash shop where you buy skins. Bungie weren't talking about the game's monetization at this point, so I have nothing to say. The faction menu is where you go to collect faction bounties. Now, these are important for a bunch of reasons. Number one,
I'm gonna be honest,
says that these.
If you are this early and you have very little content to provide, you should not be talking about DLC practices. You should not be talking about microtransaction practices. I know that that's an impossibility given the industry as it stands today, but you are just going to drive players away so damn fast. Using microtransaction as a backup bedrock for your investment of your products, no matter whether or not you are selling a premium product that will be, you know, all free content later down the road, people are not going to be patient with that, and they're not going to give you their immediate entry level access in time and commitment if you are already piddling out of their pocket more. What you should be establishing is a full-fledged financial experience, and then cosmetic stuff to support long-term growth as the time goes by. They probably don't have enough time because Sony's probably riding their asses, and Sony really needs a win right now, as well as Bungie. It seems like to me this screams mismanagement. It seems like to me that they had a different vision and it expanded into something differently later down the road. I don't know.
Bounties will be one of the primary storytelling tools that they use, but they didn't really elaborate on that. These bounties also give you specific goals to work towards when you drop onto a map.
And this is what I was talking about for progression, that when you complete missions or bounties like this and doing very specific things, you should be able to collect those resources or those goals, and then they unlock new story bits. And then when you unlock those story bits, you get new cutscenes that you get to watch, like a little 5-minute cutscene that expands on story bits. Each one unlocking story bits for each of the characters that you get to participate in and see how the whole story collectively comes together. And that would make it a lot more fun. I think that's a great element of progression. But if it's just gonna be a wall of text, that's gonna kill it.
I had one bounty where I just had to, block a certain amount of damage with a runner's shield. That was the only one I could unlock, actually, since bounties seemed to be on a daily timer, and the rest of them had already been completed when I sat down at my test PC. One of the big questions you might have about Marathon is, what is the meta progression like? If you're unfamiliar, extraction shooters are almost entirely predicated on the threat of losing everything you bring with you when you load onto a map. So if you have a bad run and you lose all your stuff, what are you taking out with you to make sure you feel less bad about that?
And here's the thing. This is where I get an issue with extraction shooters, which is, from what I played with Delta Force so far, my least favorite element is the gear stat system. I like it, granted, in Delta Force, it's not as overwhelming, but some gear stats are really, really strong, meaning there are usually weapons that are stronger than others, and they are divided by tiers, like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and tier 4 weapons are extremely strong in comparison to tier 1. I don't like that because it feels more like an RPG than it does feel like an actual skill-based shooter. Now, traditionally, in most extraction shooters, if you're a better skill shooter, you can still beat the player with a tier 1 versus that of a tier 4. The odds are really stacked against you at winning. I prefer how Hunt does it, where they have different tiered weapons, but all of them are mainline strength focused weapons, meaning as long as you land a 2 or 3 shot weapon, or 2 to 3 shots consistently, or a headshot, you're going to win the fight regardless of the tier's capacity, regardless of the tier difference between the weapons. The tier is really just the rarity of the weapon and the value at which it is when you sell it or decide to use it. So that's really it. And I kind of like that better. I'm not a big fan. Like, I get the RPG loot element of it and the mental feedback loot that comes with tier-based weaponry, but I don't like the actual combat element of it because it really feels like it's punching down on newer players or players that are not as good. It's just it creates a snowball effect that is really overwhelming, and it just makes it really niche in a lot of ways. Some people really like that, and I think that's perfectly fine. Me personally, I'm not a fan of that. That's one of the reasons why I enjoy Hunt a lot, because it feels more like a skill-based shooter. My only issue is the progression in the game, much like other extraction shooters, is just kind of non-existent.
And are you unlocking permanent gear or stat upgrades as you go that makes it easier and or more interesting as you get deeper into a season? So there are two answers to that question. Bungie has made clear that we should expect cosmetic unlocks that celebrate account milestones, and those will carry over season to season. We'll keep those permanently. In terms of player power, everything you do in Marathon, from killing an NPC to extracting with loot, will earn you experience, and that experience goes towards factional reputation that then unlocks nodes in this factional progression tree. These nodes all provide you with some sort of benefit that is permanently applied to your account for the remainder of the season, and it's things like, more buying options,
so
for the black
resets
market,
every season,
faster revive times, faster ability charge rates, etc. At the end of a season, all of your progress in these factional progression charts is wiped, and all of the loot you may have collected during a season is deleted. Every season resets everyone back to square one.
And I know that Escape from Tarkov does something similar with their wipes. I like this method a lot, but I can also see how it's controversial. I don't mind it personally, because it always, creates the perfect time to jump back into a game, But there's that other element. One of the big things that I'm hopeful for with Bungie in particular is Bungie is pretty good at dealing with cheaters in their games. At least traditionally they are. So I would expect them to be a lot more proactive about dealing with cheaters in their games, but still, faction shooters cheating is really prevalent. It's really bad. It's more so than other shooting games by far. And it's only prevalent because of the fact that it's harder to catch cheaters in these games, as well as harder to to not only catch them, but it's also harder to it's harder to stop them because the difference in power is so distinct. and the rewards are really overwhelming.
And it's one of the many reasons that I suspect Marathon will hold very little appeal to your average Destiny fan, because you can't get these people to give up loot they earned 6 years ago that they've never even bothered to equip once. It just sits in their vault. So how do you think they're going to like having their entire arsenal deleted every 3 months, or however long a season ends up being? So that's basically everything that exists outside of the playable experience. Now let's take a look at how all of this works when you get boots on the ground. Deliberately designed to be a 3-player co-op extraction experience. You can squad up with 2 other friends, or you can be match made to fill a squad of 3. You can turn off squad feel and go in solo. However, Bungie were emphatic that the game is not tuned to do that. There is no solo only queue, and the enemy NPC patrols and the PvE challenges are tuned for 3 players. So yeah.
Here's what I would do if it was me in this position making decisions. I would make 2 separate game modes, solo mode and trio mode. Luckily, like Hunt Showdown does it with duos and trios. Either way, I would do solo mode with reduced players, where it is when you're doing solo mode, instead of being 18 players on one map, it's reduced down to 6 or 8. So that way you still had people to play with, and you're not being likely ratted as hard. But you get to have that solo experience without feeling like you're fighting against the world. And it's so overwhelming, you know? I think that with trio mode, you should be able to opt out of teams so you can go solo if you want in order to get those challenges that you want, but you're not being bogged down by the rest of your team. One of the biggest problems at hand is that if you have a non-solo mode that you're involved in, and you're going in trios alone, or with other teammates, and you want to play alone, you end up having a player that's not working with the rest of the team, and they're effectively, you know, you're kneecapping everyone involved, whether it's yourself or them, you know, and it just it really ruins the gameplay experience. Personally, I just think that it's such an easy solution to get around. Make a solo mode with a reduced map size, where it's a fraction of the map size and it's down to 6 players. So that way you get to still have that fast feedback loop, but you're not getting as much rewards. Going into trios, you get a much bigger reward loot, you know, something along the lines, you know?
Yes, you can go in solo and do all of this stuff on your own, but you're not meant to do that, so you should expect a significantly more difficult time. After queuing, you will drop onto a fresh map at the same time as every other enemy player. Bungie were tinkering with the idea of having persistent maps that players drop in and out of dynamically, but they very rightly decided that extraction game pacing is very dependent on that opening window, when you know that other players are also going to be at the edges of a map moving toward the center.
Let's talk about that. So one of the things about extraction shooters is that when you arrive on these points, you arrive usually on the external side of the maps, like right here, right there, right there, right there, and right there, and this can create some issues. One of the things that can happen is that you get spawned here and another team gets spawned there, which creates an immediate combat situation. That is fun to a certain degree. The issue at hand is, as fun as that can be in a lot of ways, the best times that extraction shooters are the most amount of fun is when people are going through the actual layout of the maps and they end up running into other players. That creates the instant like panic and instant like interest of the game, you know? So spawn placement in these maps is incredibly important. And this is a really small map from what we're seeing here. It must be very complex. I know that they mentioned there's like tunnels and stuff like that around here and stuff. So it's one of those things where spawn placement and testing through spawn placement is incredibly important.
Other players are also going to be at the edges of a map moving toward the center. That means you can't join a map after it's been active for 15 minutes or whatever. everyone starts at the same time. When you arrive at a map, there is one overriding objective. Get as much stuff as you can into your bags and then extract with it. The stuff you're collecting can be weapons, consumables, gear, materials that are used to purchase nodes in that faction progression tree, and Bungie is also hinting at some lore or story items being extractable as well. So that's your overriding goal, and you get to determine how you approach it. You could literally land, loot one location, and if you get lucky with some good materials or whatever, you may just want to haul ass out of there straight away. But maybe you want to stick it out, looting and killing as much as possible before the map's 25-minute timer runs out. This is a really important thing to note for people who are not used to this genre. You really do set the pace here. This is not like playing a battle royale game where the shrinking circle leads to an inevitable conclusion.
And here's the thing. This creates some gameplay problems with the player pool, where when the player pool begins to reduce, because matches can take so long, up to like a half an hour, queue times can get really fucking long to find games because people are constantly in the games that they're already in. So wait times can be like up to like 10 minutes to 15 minutes sometimes. One of the easiest solutions is just drop the player into the game even if there's nobody in it once it hits the 5-minute mark. Have them fight the PvE, that's fine. I know that, you know, PvP is a huge component of what makes it interesting and makes it fun, but nothing is worse than sitting in a lobby with nothing to do, and especially if you're looking at screens. At the very least, what they should allow you to do is have a PvE environment that you're engaged with that you can, like, do some fun things with while you're waiting for matchmaking, you know? That's why I always felt like Division really missed an opportunity where it could have created a matchmaking system while you're engaged with the open world element of the game, you know? So that way it pulls you out of the open world element and then you're brought into a safe house for a little while, and then you do the Dark Zone stuff, you know? Stuff like that is just, to me, it's just like a no-brainer. It still boggles my mind that no one has thought about that in an extraction shooter right now.
Or a tactical shooter where it's all about quick rounds. This is a game where you set your own pace, playing as safe or as risky as you choose to, and that does make it easier to learn than other competitive PvP experiences, since you can spend the first, you know, dozen hours playing super safe before looking to up the intensity.
I disagree. I actually disagree with that. That actually is what makes extraction shooters the more difficult, because the more safe that you play and the more reserved that you play, the more difficult it is for you to actually learn the shooting and not just the shooting element, but also like the PvP element, because fighting a player versus that of fighting in the PvE is so distinctly different, and that is only really learned through time and experience and failing a lot and experiencing that. And what ends up happening in a lot of these cases that in a half an hour long game, you can have a PvP match that lasts about a minute, and that's about it. And so that minute-long battle that you're engaged with can rob you of any learning opportunities, which is where it's really important to have like replays available for extraction shooters. It's my current biggest gripe with extraction shooters. They don't offer you a replay functionality, not just to catch cheaters, but also to like learn what you did wrong, so that way you can, you know, learn from the limited amount of time that you had against the PvP situations. Really, in a lot of ways, you don't want to look at extraction shooters as an actual competitive game mode as much as it is. The reason for that is because there's so many variables that you're always having to reduce that you're just going to have to accept at a certain point that you can't reduce all of them, and you're going to lose sometimes.
The goal of looting and extracting is your overarching goal. But what are you doing moment to moment? Well, it kind of falls into three buckets. The first is fighting NPCs. This is one of the big differentiators that Marathon offers, really, since fights against NPCs are much more common here than in other extraction shooters I've played, with the exception of the Division's Dark Zone. Most major landmarks on a map will be patrolled by at least a squad or two of NPCs, and let me tell you, they are no joke. These things are not just bullet sponges or noise traps. The enemy AI on these NPCs is extremely good. I would kind of liken them to playing against a fallen captain in a Destiny strike,
I like this. This is one of my, as much as I enjoy like Hunt Showdown and games like Delta Force, what they offer with the PvP or PvE element, the PvE element is just, they're just bullet sponges for the most part. Luckily in Hunt Showdown, some of the PvE is no joke. Like, you can easily kill them once you know how to deal with them 1v1 or on your own. But when you deal with that plus a player, that can make the difference, you know, because some of the unique enemy archetypes in Hunt Showdown are just game changing when you're dealing with another player. The grunts usually not a big deal. The zombies, no big deal. But then you throw in the immolator, the one that explodes, that comes sprinting at you, that can just change the feel of the fight instantly. Or the dogs, the hounds, they can totally change the feel of the fight.
When playing on one of the harder difficulties, these NPCs often have very sophisticated movesets. They seek cover,
I'm glad about
they
this.
change elevation.
This could be the game changer
when you're out of position, and they take absolutely no prisoners. Twice my squad was wiped by NPCs, which sounds utterly ridiculous until you go up against these guys yourself, and I guarantee you'll be like, these NPCs got hands.
That's good. I'm actually glad about that, because that creates a threatening element.
The second bucket of things
it really
you'll
creates
do
a
are
lot of
various
randomization in the
activities.
game.
If you play Destiny, these activities are very similar to patrol activities that you do when you're exploring the planets in free roam. For example, you'll trigger a supply shipment, and that'll throw up a big flare so that everyone in the nearby area knows that you're in that activity, and you'll now need to hold out until that drop is complete. Maybe no other players try to contest that spot and you get some free loot, but maybe they do and it's on like Donkey Kong. Another of these activities is one that involves finding various numbered panels tucked away across the map. When you activate the first one, you see a number, and then you need to find another panel that has the same number on it. That will then direct you to a different part of the map. You do that like 3 times, and then you get a nice loot payoff at the end. Right now, I don't think these activities are working. Some of them, particularly that numbered panel activity, are really tedious to complete, and you spend an inordinate amount of time kind of just looking at this panel, and it should be easy to find, and then you have to spend all this time schlepping across the map to do it all over again. I think the supply drops aren't providing enough reward to get people really willing to contest them.
And here's the thing. Fans of this game, of extraction shooters, may find these complaints very annoying. But here's the thing. If your average gamer finds this shit annoying, they're not going to play the game for very long, and you're going to have a very short play pool, which means that you're going to have longer queue times, you're going to have longer, less engagement. You need these things to be good. They have to be. You know, these little things add up. They add up a lot.
There's another activity that involves calling down a high-level NPC who dies a little too quickly. Much of this can be smoothed out with some tinkering and tuning, but there's a bigger foundational issue related to all of these, and it's that you're spending so much time fighting NPCs and doing these activities that you spend less time fighting other players than you should be. And that neatly brings us to the third bucket of stuff you're doing while playing Marathon. You're PvPing, fighting other squads of players, hoping to take them down so you can steal all their best stuff and extract with it. Now, when these PvP showdowns happen, it's fucking awesome. One thing I haven't spoken about much yet is the fact that this is a Bungie shooter, which means it feels incredible to play. The shooting and movement mechanics are 11 out of 10. The weapon feel and recoil and the sound they make, 11 out of 10. When you have to fight other players in Marathon, it feels fantastic. And I think things like weapon DPS throughput, time to kill, and movement tech is all really well calibrated to arrive at an experience that feels tactical, but not overly punishing. This is not a game that's all about one-shot kills. Its combat pacing is far closer to Destiny, where that time to kill gives you a bit more breathing room during an engagement, and needless to say, the better geared you are, the more breathing room you'll have. But the problem is that right now, you are spending way too much time doing busy work on the map rather than fighting enemy players. And so that tense extraction loop that Bungie are aiming for here, that loop isn't fully closed. This is when I want to start zooming out and talking about Marathon overall. I love this setting. I love this aesthetic. I love Bungie's core gameplay mechanics, and I love fighting other players in this game. The problem is that Bungie have not yet figured out a way to really force players into fights in Marathon. It has activities that should be doing that, but they kind of aren't, and there's so many of these activities and so many NPCs dotted on the map that a player can sometimes go an entire round without ever fighting another team. And on the one hand, yeah, that does make the game more accessible and welcoming to players not accustomed to this genre, but on the other hand, there's something missing at the core of Marathon, And until it's slotted into place, I don't think this game is going to find the audience it's chasing.
I agree.
I recall an interesting thing that Bungie said during a group Q&A
Its vision
session
isn't complete.
when someone asked
it's
why
got a compromised vision.
Solo queue option
It
where
seems
everyone
like
drops
Marathon
in solo.
went
They
through
said that when they
development
tried
hell.
that in the past, it would lead to everyone just playing really stealthily, not wanting to be the first to make noise, so they
Seems
wouldn't
like
get
it just
targeted
needs more
by everyone
time.
else. I thought that was a really telling response because it said a lot about how Bungie wants you to play Marathon. I don't think they want you to hunt other players as much as they want you doing activities that may see you collide with other players. But like I said, those collisions aren't happening often enough right now. I think a lot about Hunt Showdown. Now, that is a game that has figured out its loop. Drop onto a map with another player, you hunt for clues that point you to the boss's location, you head to that location and set up for the boss, you fight the boss, making a huge amount of noise while doing so, while other players would have also had the same clues pointing to that location. Then when it's time to harvest the boss's essence, there's a great pillar of dark energy above the location, making you visible to the entire map. Then when it's time to extract that essence and escape the map, you are literally marked for all players to see so they can hunt you down or just be waiting for you at the extraction point. Hunt's extraction loop is so good that as I explain it to you now, I wish I was playing Hunt.
Yeah,
Marathon
I love
does not
Hunt's
have the
gameplay
equivalent of
loop.
that
Its gameplay
yet.
loop is
It has
awesome.
almost everything else it needs to be a successful extraction shooter.
The
but
only
it's
thing
missing
that Hunt is
one
missing,
thing.
the only
loop
thing
is
it's
not yet
missing
closed. That's not
is
the only
a
thing missing
separate
from
game
Marathon
mode
right
that
now, though. I do
is,
think these runner kits are really
like, that
basic
teaches people
to the
how to
point
get
where I'm
more
like,
effective
come on,
at.
Bungie, what else you got?
I would say the only thing that Hunt is missing is like an actual PvP game mode that is really short-lived, like a 5-minute, like straight up close quarters combat mode that allows people to get comfortable with the actual shooting of environments, like get comfortable with using the weapons and stuff like that. A little mini, you know, combat mode. I understand that they are worried about another game mode kind of drawing away the crowd. That's kind of what the solo hunt mode is supposed to be, the solo survivor mode, which fills in the gap of what it needs to do. But I think that the solo hunter mode is kind of a little flawed, personally. I would like it if they just reduce the map a little bit, so that way combat happens a little bit more frequently in that mode. It's not uncommon where you just only face off the last survivor of the game. So it kind of has that, but I think that it could be improved. That's my only complaint about it, the game. The only complaint.
This is the studio that designed the Strand and Stasis subclasses. And here the kids are like, ping nearby enemies once every 30 seconds, or pull up a shield that can block a little bit of damage, or go invisible for a few seconds. Honestly, I'm just gonna say it, these kits are tactical and balanced, but they're really boring and generic, and I think Bungie can do way, way better than this. Story is another big gap right now. Bungie were very upfront about the fact that they built the narrative framework for Marathon. They haven't written the actual narrative yet. It's giving vanilla Destiny, and while I don't think it's fair to jump to conclusions on this stuff, I would have loved for this preview to have had some narrative hooks already in place so that I could start getting excited
This game
about
is
this
not going to be
universe.
complete on release.
I know all of this sounds really doom and gloom, so I do want to come back to what I said at the start of this video because it's kind of the most important takeaway, and I really hope I'm getting the point across clearly. Marathon is 5 months from launch. It's about to get its first public alpha. A lot can change in 5 months, and it's possible that at least some of the issues I've spoken about here could be addressed before launch.
Yeah, but not enough.
Furthermore,
not enough time. They
that
need
all
more.
the solutions to my problems
They need
with
at
Marathon
least a
are
year,
already in
maybe
the
2.
game, but I just wasn't able to see them because one day with a game like this is not enough to be able to fully size it up. Maybe runners do become more interesting to play as you unlock more stuff in the progression tree or unlock better weapon
It's possible
mods.
they have an
Maybe there
older
is some
build, so
storytelling
you know
already
it's
in the
maybe
game and I just didn't
not
see
as
it.
fully
Maybe
flushed.
that loop does work when you've got a larger, more experienced player base playing the game rather than a bunch of content creators playing it for the first time. But even with all of those concessions, I still have this gut
if you're
feeling
banking
that
on
Marathon
content
will launch
creators to
one
carry
way,
your game for
and
you,
then it
it's
will
not
undergo
going to
a rapid
happen.
metamorphosis as Bungie continue to build the game post-launch. I get the feeling that the Marathon
Content creators have a lot of impact, yes, but they don't have that much impact. They are not going to sell your game for you.
Like version
you need to
3 or
make a
whatever.
fully
Anyone
finished
who's
product.
played Destiny knows what I'm talking about. Bungie build the airplane while it's in the air. That's what they've done for the past decade, and I expect it to be the same here.
Ugh.
I personally am willing to go with them on that journey. As
Not
unpopular
me.
as it is to say, I love Bungie, and I love their games, and I would love Marathon to be my go-to PvP game. And I actually kind of like hearing that Bungie
I don't like playing a game that is incomplete and I have to wait for it to be finished.
You can say we're going to build this game with the help of our community while still charging a premium upfront
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
price
saying.
tag for it. It's like you gotta pick one. Either the game is built and you charge for it, or it isn't, and you welcome people in for free so they can help do some of the work for you.
Exactly. If it
Stepping
was a
back
free-to-play
from
game, it'd
that,
be a different
there's a simple
story.
reality that a game like this needs a vast player base to be successful. The psychological barrier to entry for the extraction shooter genre is huge, because your average player is not going to love the idea of paying $40 or whatever for a game where they lose all of their best loot when they have a bad run, and then they lose absolutely everything they've collected every few months. This is a hardcore genre, and if Bungie are serious about welcoming in the type of player who doesn't typically play this game, then I don't think an upfront price tag makes sense. You just need to get these people in, and then you can, you know, sell battle passes or cosmetics or whatever. And that's setting aside how entrenched the competition is right now. Tarkov is huge. Hunt Showdown has basically the same concurrent player count that Destiny 2 does right now. I'll put it to you this way. When I was in New York, I caught up with a friend of mine who has a senior role at a publisher, and their job is to review and fund games. This person sees over 150 pitches every year from developers who want money to be able to make their game, and he tells me that one of the most important questions he asks these people is, the kind of player that you want to play your game, what game are they playing right now? And is your game good enough to pull those people away from that game?
That's a
right now,
question.
It's too early to judge if Marathon might be good enough to pull people away from the competition, or if it might be novel enough to welcome in players who typically don't play these sorts of games. But I do know that that question becomes much more difficult to answer when those players need to reckon with an upfront box price. That is what I think about Marathon. It's a nuanced take, so I hope I've communicated
I really
it well.
appreciate
Just in case I haven't, I'm going to try it
providing
one
that
more
take,
time.
though.
There's a
and
lot that I
providing
like about what Bungie are doing with Marathon.
Open
There's some
critique.
stuff that
This
I
is
don't
why I like
as
watching
much,
his videos.
but I do think it will improve. Crucially, I think there's something missing from Marathon's core gameplay loop, and once it's slotted in, Marathon's going to really start to hum. But with it being absent, it's really difficult to get a sense of where Marathon is headed or where it might one day end up. I personally am glad that Bungie are making Marathon available so early so that we can give them the feedback that they'll need, and I'm also okay with a game like this launching in a sort of
My guess is that the reason why they did this so early is because they know that they are missing something and they need the players to give them the feedback to figure it out.
It's going to make that journey much more
Which is what exactly what happened with like games like Hunt Showdown and
but I like Bungie
from my understanding with Escape from Tarkov and many other like early access, you know, games that are experimental. You know, they allow players to give them their feedback and then they figure out over time, oh, let's add these things, let's shift these things, let's change these things.
So we're just going to have to wait and see what Bungie has in store for us as we head towards that September 23rd release.
Wonderful, wonderful video. Well done, Skill Up. You always kill it, man. You always kill it. So, well, that'll be it for the Marathon coverage. Overall, like, the game is exciting still. I'm still excited to see what the game is, but I don't think I'm gonna jump a horse on it right off the bat. Hopefully they can make some drastic changes in the short amount of time that they got, but I doubt it. 5 months is not enough time. I understand that 300 people working on it can make a big impact, but I'm skeptical. At least they have the bones and the framework of what kind of game they want to make, but it just seems like this game needs another year, maybe even another year or two of development. This screams to me a game that was supposed to be one thing, and they changed it midway through development. And they, you know, the higher ups said, well, shit out of luck, buddy, you should have stuck with your first plan. You're still meeting our deadline schedule, you know, and Sony really needs a win. Like, it really does need a win right now. It's been on kind of a pretty negative press ride for a while now due to the way that they've handled a lot of their business ventures, as well as their games currently have kind of like just been absent for a while. So they really want to win, and I think that forcing out a game prematurely is just not a great way to do business. But you know, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, you know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping that I would love to see a new extraction shooter really do something inventive and really cool. I love the art style to this game, but I feel like every extraction shooter is missing the clear thing, which is like exactly what the Division did. The onboarding of the PvE element is just smart and casually appealing. And then you just make the PvP element the hardcore experience, you know. But then again, you know, people may want to get into the PvP element right away, so you can make that streamlined process really quick, you know. It doesn't have to be 20-30 hours and then you get to play PvP. It could be something that you participate in by literally using the same feedback, the same gameplay loop that you do in your typical extraction shooter, or like, for example, you go into a pseudo dark zone, we'll just call it a dark zone for now, and they strip you of all your equipment, and then you have to buy their black site equipment using the in-game currency. And then you go into the PvP zone. Well, okay, I've had enough of that, and I'm gonna go back to the PvE zones, and now I get all the equipment I had from out there back, you know. And then I get to explore and fuck around and socialize and make friends, and then I can take those friends with me, go to the PvP zone, and then we get to lose all of our equipment that we're wearing for our PvE stuff, and then buy equipment at the PvP zone, you know, using that game, you know, using the in-game currency and stuff like that. It's just, to me, it's just, I just see such an obvious solution that no one is utilizing. My big issue with like Division is that like you bring your PvE equipment into the PvP zone and they functionally are different weapons, or maybe just the equipment is just so leveled up that it's clearly an RPG combat zone, where as opposed to a skill-based one. And it's just like, it's not hard to create a wall between the PvE zone and the PvP zone, where the PvP zone is purely for socializing and engaging with other players, while the PvP zone is the competitive field, and you're actually unlocking and gathering stuff that is rare and selling it and having that actual PvP component. It's just, to me, it seems like a missed opportunity. I don't know. Maybe my vision of it is just lacking, and maybe my vision isn't right, and maybe most people don't like that idea. But to me, it just seems like such an obvious approach. So simple, and no one's utilizing it. I don't know why.